With the trade period underway, we thought we'd go through the top 10 worst AFL trades in history. Number 10, we got the 2009 trade for Josh Gibson. Gibson just finished his 5th season at North Melbourne, where he was picked up as a rookie as a key defender, where Hawthorn came calling looking for a defender after a disappointing 2009 season, where the year before they won the flag, but they missed finals in 2009. North Melbourne were happy to trade Josh Gibson and also pick 69 to get pick 25 and 41. Gibson ended up playing 160 games for Hawthorn and was such a key component in their defence, where they won 3 flags. And pick 69, they got Taylor Duray, who actually was a part of 2 of the Hawthorn premierships. So that was a really good pick for them. North Melbourne, with pick 25, picked up Aaron Black. He did play 57 games for North Melbourne, but ended up getting delisted. And Aidan Kennedy was the pick 41, who did not play a game. So in hindsight here, the Gibson trade was a brilliant trade for Hawthorn. Not so good for North Melbourne. The 2 picks they got didn't work out for them, and they lost a future star defender. Number 9, we've got Richmond trading for Jordan McMahon. After playing 114 games for the Western Bulldogs, Richmond decided thought it'd be a good time to trade to get the former number 10 pick over to Richmond. Terry Wallace was the Richmond coach at this time. He was the Western Bulldogs coach when they drafted McMahon. So he obviously believed that he had the talent and would help Richmond quite a bit, so the trade happened. So they gave up pick 19 for McMahon, and that pick 19 ended up being Callum Ward. Now, at the end of the day, the Bulldogs did trade him to the Giants, and he played 326 games altogether. So maybe a bit of a miss from Richmond's perspective of giving up pick 19. Whereas for McMahon, did not play many more games. He only played 34 games for the Tigers. But there is one positive you can take out of the McMahon trade, is that he did do one thing in 2009 in round 18. He was the one that kicked the winning goal against Melbourne, which pretty much secured Melbourne to be bottom, and it's known as the tanking game, they all say. Why is that important? Well, later in the draft, Melbourne had the first 2 picks. They picked up Tom Scully and Jack Trengove, where Richmond had picked 3, and they picked up Dustin Martin, and you know what happened with the rest of it. Number 8, we've got the Brendan Favola trade in 2010, where Carlton traded Favola to Brisbane for Lockie Henderson and pick 12, while also Brisbane were getting pick 27 along with Favola. There was always a bit of a risk with this trade in Brisbane's perspective, given that Favola did have some off-field issues, but he was one of the dominant forwards at the time, so they really wanted to give this a gamble, and boy did it not pay off at all. He did have some glimpses in a couple of games in 2010 with some moments, but he only played 17 games, only played for the 1 season, ended up being delisted at the end of the year due to some more off-field issues. And the pick 27 they got was Callum Butler, who did not even play a game, so that did not work at all. Gave up pick 12, which was Kane Lucas, only played 42 games for Carlton. But the other one, Lockie Henderson, played for Carlton and also for Geelong, so he had a solid career. So it kind of worked okay for Carlton in some perspective. This ended up being a terrible trade for Brisbane. As I said, Favola only played 17 games, and the pick they got with it didn't even play a game. At number 7, we've got the player swap between Sean Grigg and Andrew Collins. Grigg had played 43 games at Carlton at the time, but due to the lack of consistent playing time, he requested a trade to Richmond, and boy was this move brilliant for the Tigers. So the player that Carlton wanted in the trade was Andrew Collins. He only played 11 games for Carlton, and Grigg, well, he played 171 games for the Tigers and won 3 premierships, and probably one of the more consistent players in the game in that period. He played in 20 plus games in 7 of his first 8 seasons with the club and averaged over 20 disposals per game in each of those seasons. So I think it's pretty fair to know who won this trade. It was a great trade for Richmond, but because these are the worst trades, did not work at all for Carlton, so they're in 7th spot. Number 6, we've got the Wayne Carey trade to the Adelaide Crows. Due to circumstances that pretty much everyone should know about in 2002, he was traded from North Melbourne to Adelaide Crows for the 2003 AFL season. The Crows gave up pick 2 and pick 18 for the services of Carey. Carey only played 28 games. He did kick 56 goals, so he was able to kick some goals, but he did have some injury troubles in the 2 years, and he ended up retiring in the end of the 2004 season. For North Melbourne, they did, for pick 2, got Daniel Wells, who did play 258 games altogether. He did win 2 best and fairest at North Melbourne, so not too bad of a deal there, but pick 18 was a bit of a disaster. They picked up Chris Shaw, which I don't even know who he is, and clearly did not play a game. Probably makes sense as to how I do not recognize that name. Sorry, Chris, if you are watching this. This trade just did not work for the Crows, as they got rid of their 2 first-round picks, And in the next couple of years after, they actually were premiership contenders at this point. So imagine if they had the pick 2 and pick 18, and they got someone solid at pick 18, and if they did get Daniel Wells at pick 2, just adds that bit more quality. Who knows, they could have gone to that next level of making the grand final and potentially winning it too. At number 5, we've got the Brad Ottens trade to Geelong. Ottens was an All-Australian while playing for Richmond. He played 129 games until the end of the 2004 season, where he requested a trade to go to Geelong because the lack of success at Richmond was making him not enjoy his footy. Richmond were desperate to get a pick inside the top 10, but they had to settle with pick 12 and 16. Pick 12, they got Danny Meyer, who only played 26 games. And pick 16, they got Adam Patterson, who only played 66 games. And Brad Ottens, well, 116 games at Geelong and was in 4 grand finals and won 3 premierships. So it was definitely one that Richmond did not want to trade, and you could see why they didn't want to trade him because of how good he was as a ruckman, and he was so good for Geelong. He won those premierships. Just wasn't a good trade for Richmond in the end. They really wanted that pick inside the top 10, but they got 2 first rounders kind of late in the first, so it didn't really work out for them, and the 2 players they picked just didn't work. So in the end, just an awful trade for Richmond. Number 4, we got the 1994 trades between Fremantle and Essendon. Now, this was the final summer before Fremantle actually entering the AFL. Coach at the time, Jared Neesham for Fremantle, wanted to get a few of his former players that he coached at Claremont to come back before they entered the AFL. The 3 players they got from Essendon were Todd Ridley, Tony Delaney, and Dale Kickett. And as a result of this, they gave up their pick 4, which ended up being Scott Lucas, who ended up being a great centre forward for Essendon, and also an agreement with a concession selection so they could select any 16-year-old at the time. And Essendon picked up Matthew Lloyd, probably one of the great full forwards in that late 90s, early 2000s. Lloyd and Lucas actually combined for 1,397 goals and 540 games, playing obviously key roles in the Essendon's 2000 premiership win. Meanwhile, at the Dockers, Ridley only played 21 games, Delaney only played 28 games. Kickett is probably the better out of the 3. He did actually was a solid player, 135 games. He did win a best and fairest as well at Fremantle, so he actually wasn't too bad, but the other 2 players you could probably say weren't very good at the time. At number 3, we got the Andrew McLeod trade. Now, before being a 340-game superstar at the Adelaide Crows, Andrew McLeod was pretty much on the verge of signing for Fremantle, given that the Dockers actually had the rights to recruit the young forward from the sample. However, the meeting between Fremantle coach Jared Neesham and Andrew McLeod and his dad did not go so well between all of them, as Fremantle actually have never seen him play, didn't really rate McLeod, and in the actual meeting, Neesham actually asked Andrew McLeod to stand up, just so he can check his height. So after that meeting, McLeod actually felt like he felt disrespected and did not want to play for Fremantle after that interview. So they organised a trade to make this happen. So Andrew McLeod was traded to the Adelaide Crows and also pick 38, which ended up being Matthew Collins, for a player named Chris Groom, who was at the Crows, a key forward who only played 7 games for the Dockers in 1995 before being traded to North Melbourne, and he played a few games there before he got delisted. Now, this deal has been regarded as one of the worst trades, given that how good Andrew McLeod became, a 2-time premiership player, a 2-time Norm Smith, a 5-time All-Australian, a 3-time Best and Fairest winner, an AFLPA MVP award. The list goes on. And Fremantle missed out completely on him and could have been an absolute superstar there. And as I said, Fremantle with Chris Groom only played 1 year at the Dockers. So terrible trade from the Dockers. And there is still one more coming for them. So sorry, Freo fans. Number 2, we got the Trent Crowe trade in 2001, which they traded him for pick 1, which ended up being Luke Hodge. After a terrible 2001 season, with only winning just 2 games, Fremantle thought it would be a great idea to trade their first pick to try and get Trent Code from Hawthorn. So the final deal ended up being Fremantle receiving Trent Code and Luke McFarlane from Hawthorn, while the Hawks received pick 1, 20 and 36. So in the end, Trent Code only playing 38 games for the Dockers until actually returning back to Hawthorn to be an All-Australian and a Premiership player and play 100 games there. The one positive you could take out for the Dockers was Luke McFarlane trade. He did play 244 games for the Dockers, being an All-Australian and actually being in their only grand final appearance in 2013. So you can take some sort of positive that actually worked okay. Whereas the picks they traded, pick 1, as we all know, pick 1 ended up being Luke Hodge, an absolute legend of the game, 346 games, a 3-time All-Australian, a 2-time Norm Smith, 4 premierships as well. So really, that was a bit of a miss from the Dockers. Pick 20, Daniel Elstone did not play a game, so that one didn't work out well. But pick 36, that they did trade, ended up being Sam Mitchell, Rising Star winner. He's a 3-time All-Australian. He's won a few best and fairest. Another one who's won 4 premierships as well. They went for the big gamble, thinking that Trent Coe would be that superstar player they really needed, and it just did not work for him. It was just a terrible trade, unfortunately, for the Dockers, and they've had a few on this list. So lesson learned, if you're a team that want to trade with Freo, maybe do it, because you might actually get some benefits out of it. And number 1, the worst trade in AFL history. Some of you probably don't know about this one, but I believe this is definitely the worst trade, given the circumstances of what actually happened afterwards. It is the Stephen O'Reilly trade from Fremantle to Carlton. O'Reilly has played 134 games at the time of this trade, was at Geelong, currently at Fremantle, and Carlton thought they needed to get a key defender into their team after making the grand final as well, and they decided to give up pick 16 and pick 46 for Stephen O'Reilly, who only ended up playing 12 games for Carlton in 2000. And the picks that they did get rid of, pick 16 ended up being David Haynes, who only played 65 games, and pick 46 is Adam Butler, who didn't even play a game. So it probably didn't work so much well for Fremantle. But what makes the trade really bad is what happened after this. It was revealed shortly before the 2002 AFL draft that the AFL have actually banned Carlton for breaches of their salary cap during the 2000 and 2001 season. So the breaches were related to under-the-table payments that were made outside the salary cap to 4 players, and one of them was Stephen O'Reilly. Now, this has nothing to do with him, not his fault. It's just what the club administration decided to do, which was plainly stupid, to be honest. So the 4 players they had was O'Reilly, Fraser Brown, and then a couple superstars in Craig Bradley and Stephen Silvani. So the punishment that the AFL gave was a fine of a total of $930,000 at this time, losing draft picks, pick 1, 2, 31, 34 from the 2002 draft, all draft picks in the 2003 preseason draft, and then all their first and second round picks in the 2003 national draft. This really set them back a lot, given that the salary cap breach, and really in the 2000s, they were just a very ordinary side, and it really started from this. So you can really say that this Stephen O'Reilly trade that happened in 1999, only playing 12 games in 2000 and giving up pick 16 and 46 for someone that they only really had one season with, for giving him payments outside the salary cap, really screwed Carlton for many years to come. In retrospect, this is the worst trade in AFL history. Let me know what you think of this top 10. Do you agree with all this? Is the order incorrect? Or is there some trades I actually missed? Comment down below those ones. I'm interested to see your opinion. If you enjoyed this video, leave it a like. Subscribe if you are new to this channel. Really do appreciate the support. Thank you so much. And if you want to see some more content, have a look at this video over here. I think you'll enjoy it.